This is a map of the world. Find Europe, find Asia, now trace the sea route between them. Rotterdam to Singapore, London to Mumbai, Hamburg to Shanghai. Every one of those routes has to pass through the same place. The same 193 kilometers of man-made water cut through the Egyptian desert. On the map, it barely registers, a thin scratch between two seas. But that thin scratch carries 14% of global trade, 12% of the world's oil, 30% of all container ship traffic, every single day. More goods pass through the Suez Canal in a single week than the entire GDP of many countries. Now ask yourself, what happens when it stops? The Suez Canal is not just a shortcut. It is the reason the modern world works the way it does. Without it, a ship sailing from Rotterdam to Mumbai has to go around the entire African continent, around the Cape of Good Hope, 19,800 kilometers, 10 to 14 extra days of sailing every single trip through the Suez Canal, 11,900 kilometers, nearly 8,000 kilometers saved, millions of dollars in fuel, crew costs, port fees per trip. For a fleet that makes hundreds of trips a year, the canal doesn't just save time. It is the entire economic logic of modern global trade. Without it, almost everything gets more expensive. For almost everyone on Earth. To understand the Suez Canal, start with the geography underneath it, Northeast Africa. A thin strip of land connecting Africa to Asia, the Isthmus of Suez, just desert, flat, hot, almost nothing on the north side, the Mediterranean Sea, on the south, the Red Sea. Here's the geological miracle. Both seas are almost exactly the same elevation. Sea level on both sides, no mountains to blast through, just flat desert between two oceans. This means a canal here needs no locks, no pumps. You simply dig a channel and the two seas connect by gravity. The Panama Canal needs intricate locks to lift ships 26 meters over the Continental Divide. Suez, just dig. A geographical accident that made this the most buildable canal on Earth. And every great civilization that ever looked at this gap understood exactly what it meant. Egyptian pharaohs built the first precursor canal, the Canal of the Pharaohs connecting the Nile Delta to the Red Sea, possibly as early as 1897 BC, 4,000 years ago. It fell into disuse, rebuilt by Pharaoh Necho II in 610 BC, abandoned, rebuilt by Darius of Persia in the 5th century BC. He left a stone inscription in 4 languages declaring the canal open. We still have it today. Napoleon's engineers surveyed the isthmus in 1799 and made a famous mathematical error, concluding the Red Sea was 9 meters higher than the Mediterranean. They were wrong. That mistake delayed the modern canal by decades. For 4,000 years, Pharaohs, Persians, Romans, Arabs, French, every major power looked at this gap and tried to unlock it. The man who finally built the modern Suez Canal was not an engineer. He was a diplomat, Ferdinand de Lesseps, a French consul who had spent years in Egypt, charming, persuasive, relentlessly optimistic. No technical training, what he had was connections. In 1854, he secured a deal to form the Suez Canal Company, French-funded, French engineers. The Egyptian government would supply the land and the workers. That last clause is where the story gets dark. Construction began April 25, 1859. At its peak, 30,000 workers were digging at any given moment. Over the entire decade, an estimated 1.5 million Egyptians passed through that site. Most of them did not choose to be there. Under a system called the corvée, forced peasant labor, Egyptian villages were raided. Men rounded up, sometimes in chains, marched into the desert, paid almost nothing, housed in camps that became breeding grounds for cholera, dysentery, and typhoid. By 1865, a cholera outbreak was so severe that there were not enough men left standing to carry the corpses. Britain was the loudest voice condemning the forced labor. The same Britain that had used thousands of Egyptian laborers to build its own railroads across Egypt just years before. De Lesseps wrote a furious letter to London, pointing this out. He was right. Britain's opposition was strategic. A French-controlled shortcut to India threatened British naval supremacy. The outrage about labor was a diplomatic weapon. Forced labor was banned in 1863. The canal company turned to steam and coal-powered dredgers, one of the earliest examples of industrial mechanization in large-scale civil engineering. 3/4 of all the sand excavated was moved by machine, 75 million cubic meters of earth, the equivalent of digging a hole the size of Manhattan, 40 meters deep. On November 17, 1869, 10 years, roughly 120,000 dead, and double the original budget later, the Suez Canal opened. French Empress Eugénie led a procession of 68 ships through the canal. The world called it the greatest engineering achievement of the century. The Egyptians who built it were not invited to the ceremony. Within 6 years, Britain was running the canal. By 1875, the Egyptian government was bankrupt. Khedive Ismail owned 44% of the Suez Canal Company and quietly put the shares up for sale. British Prime Minister Benjamin Disraeli found out. He wanted those shares. Parliament wasn't sitting. The formal treasury process was too slow. He went to the Rothschild banking family. He needed £4 million tonight. The money was transferred. The shares were bought. Britain owned 44% of the Suez Canal Company in a single evening, and Parliament was only told after the fact. Within 7 years, Britain occupied Egypt itself. The artery to India had to be secured. India, Australia, Singapore, Hong Kong, East Africa. Every one of those possessions was connected to London through this canal. Every soldier sent east, every load of Indian cotton, every barrel of Burmese oil, every ton of Australian wool, all of it transited the Suez Canal. The canal did not make Britain an empire, but it made the British Empire possible to run. July 26, 1956. Alexandria, Egypt. President Gamal Abdel Nasser is giving a speech, and somewhere in the middle of it, Nasser says a name, Ferdinand de Lesseps. That is a code word. At the exact moment those words leave Nasser's mouth, Egyptian army units, pre-positioned across the entire 193 kilometers of the canal, move simultaneously. Every office, every pumping station, every control room, seized in minutes. By the end of that evening, Egypt owns the Suez Canal. France and Israel coordinated a secret invasion. Then the United States intervened not on Britain's side. On Egypt's, Eisenhower threatened to collapse the pound. He blocked an IMF loan Britain desperately needed. He made Britain choose, withdraw, or face financial ruin. Britain withdrew, France withdrew, Israel withdrew. Canal, financed by French investors, built on Egyptian bodies, purchased with Rothschild money, guarded by British troops for 80 years, became Egyptian. The Suez Crisis settled 3 things. Britain was no longer a superpower. The United States was the new hegemon, but its power came with conditions, and Egypt showed the developing world that nationalization was possible. Nasser became the most popular leader in the Arab world overnight. Now, an even stranger story. June 5th, 1967. The 6-day war breaks out. Egypt seals both ends of the canal with scuttled ships and mines. There is just one problem. At that exact moment, 15 international cargo ships are transiting the canal, caught in the Great Bitter Lake, the wide midpoint section. They cannot go north, cannot go south, and so they stay for 8 years. Team nations were represented. The crews created an extraordinary floating community in the middle of a war zone. They called themselves the Great Bitter Lake Association. They organized the Bitter Lake Olympic Games in October 1968. 14 disciplines, handcrafted medals. Poland won gold in sailing. They printed their own stamps, lowered a piano onto a lifeboat, and serenaded each ship at Christmas. By the time the canal reopened in 1975, the ships were covered in desert sand, which is why they were called the Yellow Fleet. Their cargo had rotted. The vessels, state-of-the-art in 1967, were obsolete by 1975. The container revolution had happened while they were trapped. They sailed home as museum pieces. Here's something the canal did that nobody planned. When the Suez Canal opened in 1869, it connected 2 seas that had been isolated for millions of years. The Mediterranean and the Red Sea, completely different ecosystems, evolved separately, divided by desert. Because the Red Sea is slightly saltier and warmer, Red Sea species were better adapted to the mixed environment. They moved in. Mediterranean species couldn't compete. Scientists call this the Lessepsian migration. Over 800 species of Red Sea origin have now been documented in the Eastern Mediterranean. More than half have established permanent populations. Native Mediterranean fish are being displaced. Traditional fisheries in Turkey, Greece, and Israel have collapsed. A canal built to move goods between continents ended up moving ecosystems between oceans. Now, the crisis happening right now to reach the Suez Canal from the Indian Ocean, a ship must pass through the Red Sea, and to enter the Red Sea from the Indian Ocean only one route, the Bab el-Mandeb Strait, Gate of Grief in Arabic, 29 kilometers wide, flanked on the east by Yemen, and Yemen since November 2023, has been where the Houthi movement, backed by Iran, has been launching missiles, drones, and anti-ship attacks on commercial vessels. By early 2025, over 130 ships had been attacked. 2 sunk, 4 sailors killed. Insurance premiums hit their highest level since World War II. The canal itself untouched. Egypt kept its lights on, its pilots ready. But the only approach from the south, was a war zone. So the shipping industry did the calculation. Pay 3 to 5 times the normal insurance premium. Risk your cargo, your crew, your ship, or reroute around Africa. Add 12 days, add fuel costs, Maersk, MSC, CMA, CGM, Hapag-Lloyd. Every major line rerouted. The canal that had made the Cape of Good Hope irrelevant became irrelevant itself. Numbers tell the story. In 2023, the best year in the canal's history, 26,434 ships passed through. Egypt earned approximately $6 billion by October 2024. Monthly traffic had dropped by 57%. Annual transits in 2024, 13,213. Egypt was losing approximately $2.5 billion a year. In February 2025, the Houthis announced a temporary ceasefire. Traffic began recovering. Then, March 28, 2026, new escalation, the Houthis' resume attacks. Even after 100 days without documented attacks, canal traffic remains 60% below pre-crisis levels. The canal is no longer the default. It is an option to be weighed against alternatives. That is a fundamental change in how global trade thinks about the Suez Canal. And it happened in less than 3 years. The Suez Crisis has accelerated a race that was already quietly underway. Every major power has spent the last 2 years urgently mapping alternatives. There are 4 serious ones. The first, the Northern Sea route. Climate change is melting the Arctic. In September 2025, a China-linked container ship called the Istanbul Bridge completed a full transit from Ningbo, China to Felixstowe, UK through the Arctic. The first liner service ever to use the Northern Sea route. 21 days instead of 35 to 40 via Suez, fuel savings up to 40%. Russia controls these waters. Every ship must use Russian icebreakers, pay Russian fees, operate under Russian supervision. It is a Suez Canal, under Moscow's thumb instead of Cairo's. The second, China's Belt and Road Initiative. Since 2013, China has built overland rail corridors across Central Asia. The China Railway Express has now run over 77,000 trains, Chongqing to Duisburg, Yiwu to Madrid. When the Suez route is disrupted, Chinese exports can move overland. The third, the India-Middle East-Europe Economic Corridor, IMEC, backed by the United States, the EU, India, Saudi Arabia, and the UAE. A rail and road corridor from India through the Gulf, Saudi Arabia, Jordan, and Israel to the Mediterranean, bypassing the Suez Canal in Egypt entirely, still largely aspirational. But its announcement was a signal. Washington is serious about building trade infrastructure that does not run through China-aligned corridors. And then there's the most controversial alternative of all, the Ben Gurion Canal, a new waterway through Israel. From Eilat on the Gulf of Aqaba, through the Negev Desert, to the Mediterranean near Ashkelon, 300 kilometers entirely Israeli-controlled. In July 1963, the U.S. Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory, classified until 1993, wrote a memo exploring the use of 520 underground nuclear explosions to excavate the canal through the Negev Hills, 520 nuclear explosions. To dig a canal, Egypt has responded with alarm. The Ben Gurion Canal would eliminate Egypt's primary source of foreign revenue almost entirely. Make Israel the guardian of the world's most important trade route instead of Egypt. The Suez Canal is 193 kilometers of water cut through Egyptian desert, built on the geology of a flat isthmus where two seas share the same elevation, a geographical accident, built on the bodies of 1.5 million Egyptian workers, perhaps 120,000 dead. Bought in one evening, nationalized in one speech, fought over in 3 wars, closed for 8 years while 15 ships held their own Olympic Games in the middle of it. It changed the biology of the Mediterranean Sea. It is currently half empty because of a civil war in Yemen, and it is being threatened for the first time in its history, not by military closure but by competition. The Suez Canal will not disappear, but it is, for the first time since 1869, no longer obviously the answer to the question, how does the world move its goods from east to west? And whoever answers that question next controls the next century of global trade. I'm InMaps, and this is the world, one line at a time.